Hello everyone, and welcome to the fourth installment of this 5-part series, Marble Mayhem. As always, my name's Mike Camera, and this is my co-host Justin Time. And Justin, we saw some crazy races back in the round of 32. Yeah, Mike, round of 32 brought us some crazy upsets and some really close ties, especially coming in with Borealis and Neon Lights, the first match of the day. It had to go through multiple takes on that finish cam to figure out that Borealis barely edged out Neon Lights. Yeah, Justin, but we also saw some crazy moves that no one has done before, like the race against Cyanator and Inferno. Cyanator pushed Inferno onto that obstacle to make him lose all of his momentum so he can move on to the Sweet 16. Absolutely, Mike. And finally, we saw some crazy upsets like Ocean Foam, who had the fastest time in the Marvelous track, get beaten out by Samurai, who had one of the slowest times. Thanks, Justin. Now, without further ado, let's get right into the very first races of the Sweet 16 to see who will be moving on to the Elite 8. Our first match is Borealis versus Snowball. Borealis had the second fastest time, and Snowball had the 15th fastest time in the first course, while as in the second course, Borealis had the third fastest time, with Snowball having the 25th fastest time, which is the slowest winning time on that course. But anything can happen here in the Jubilino track. Who is going to take it? It's a close match from the start. Snowball has the slightest lead. Snowball extending that lead. Can Snowball upset Borealis? He's got the lead, but he goes to the slow track, and Borealis goes to the fast track. So Borealis comes from behind to beat Snowball. Let's look at this again. Snowball had this huge lead. Borealis tried to catch up, but he goes to the slow track, so Borealis could just go through the quick track and move on to the Elite 8. So Borealis wins the first match and is going to go into the Elite 8. Who will he face? Let's find out now. Thanks, Mike. Now we have Samurai versus Minchip. Minchip was faster in both courses, 4th place and 8th place, than Samurai. So let's see what he can do on the Jubilino track. Samurai's the slightest lead. Samurai holding onto that lead, but Minchip takes it through the slow track, and Minchip goes to the fast track, so Samurai cannot win. Let's look at this in instant replay. We got Samurai in the lead, but he goes so slow, and Minchip has so much more momentum in the slow section, and Minchip cruised on to the quick track, so Minchip is going to be moving on to the Elite 8 and face against Borealis. Thanks, Justin. Now we have Pac-Man versus Marshmallow. Pac-Man had the 18th and 8th fastest times on the Rack and Roll and Jubilino track, while Marshmallow had the 4th and 3rd fastest times. Marshmallow clearly the stronger marble here, but Pac-Man's a big fan favorite and can turn on the jets when he needs to. Who's got the lead? It's neck and neck so far, and they both get hung up on the obstacles, but Marshmallow comes out first, and Marshmallow is going to move on to the Elite 8. Well, let's look at this again. You can see we've got some of the slowest times yet, but watch as Pac-Man goes from last to first on the rails, but they both get hung up on the obstacles. Just Marshmallow has more forward momentum, so he got out of him first, and that gave Marshmallow the win. So Marshmallow comes from behind to beat Pac-Man and is moving on to the Elite 8. Thanks, Mike. Now we have Cloudy Sky versus Jawbreaker. Jawbreaker had the fastest time in the Rack and Roll track, while Cloudy Sky had the fastest time in the Jubilino track. Cloudy Sky, quick start and going straight through, but he hits the obstacle barrier, and Jawbreaker comes from behind, and Jawbreaker is moving on. Let's look at this in instant replay. You can see Cloudy Sky had a huge lead from the start, but he got hung up on that obstacle, and Jawbreaker didn't, and then Jawbreaker had so much more momentum to push Cloudy Sky out of the exit way, and Jawbreaker is going to move on and face Marshmallow in the Elite 8. Wow, Justin, we had some crazy races down there in the Sweet 16. Yeah, Mike, we saw some crazy upsets, and also some insane ties, and some crazy moments like Marshmallow and Pac-Man both getting stuck on that obstacle. Let's see what the right side of the bracket has in store. That's a great idea, Justin. Let's get right into our first match on the right side of the bracket, where we have Everest versus Rubber Ducky. Rubber Ducky, the winner in the Lucky Titans version of this type of bracket. He's the 5th and 1st fastest times in the 2 tracks he's raced in, so Everest really has to step up his game if he wants to win. Rubber Ducky has a huge lead. Look at this lead. He's really extending it, and Rubber Ducky looks as though he's going to move on, and yes, he does. Rubber Ducky with the lightning fast pace. Let's look at this again. Rubber Ducky ran almost a perfect race, except for getting a little bit stuck in that loop-de-loop. but he just went right into the catcher right there and never looked back. And Everest just did too little, too late. So Rubber Ducky is going to move on to the Elite Eight and beat out Everest. Who will he face? Let's find out now. What a race, Mike. Now let's move on to a race we've all been looking for. Winter Green versus Cynator. Cynator, a big fan favorite, but Winter Green, one of the better marbles in this competition. Winter Green takes the lead. Cynator not far behind. Winter Green extending his lead now through that semicircle. Winter Green now has a huge lead. Cynator trying to make up some time, but Winter Green goes straight in and does not hesitate, unlike Cynator. And Cynator turned in one of the slowest times yet on this course. Let's look at this again. You can see Winter Green once again gets a little bit stuck in that loop-de-loop. But other than that, he ran an almost perfect race, just like Rubber Ducky, and is going to move on to the Elite Eight. Cynator turned in a time of 16.72, and that's the slowest time ever recorded on that track besides a DNF. So that's really disappointing for all the Cynator fans. Thanks, Justin. Moving on to our 7th match of the day, Coral Reef versus Pinky Dinky. Coral Reef out to a quick lead. Pinky Dinky making up some time. It's neck and neck. Coral Reef takes it through the S's, and Coral Reef will move on. Let's look at this. In instant replay, you can see Pinky Dinky got a lot of ground made up right there. But watch in the X's as Coral Reef plays him to his advantage. So Coral Reef barely staying in this competition. Almost got upset Pinky Dinky. But he's going to move on. And who's going to take the final spot in the Elite Eight? It's going to be Shimmer or Purple Puff. Purple Puff out to the quick lead. Purple Puff holding that lead. It's neck and neck. And Shimmer comes back in the final straightaway. Let's look at this again. Purple Puff had the lead through the entire race, but Shimmer comes through at the end. Let's look at this in our finish cam. You can see how Purple Puff had the lead, but Shimmer just a bolt of energy at the end. So Shimmer is going to upset fan favorite Purple Puff and move on to the Elite Eight. Wow, Justin, we saw some crazy races in the first 3 parts of this series, but the Sweet 16 was no different. Yeah, Mike, now we are moving on to the Elite Eight, where the rules are a little bit varied since this is so late in the competition. So here are the Elite Eight rules. This will be a best 2 out of 3 with the marbles switching lanes in the 2 tracks. If there's a tie, a coin flip will be decided which lanes the marbles will be racing on, and the previous winner will call which side the coin will land on. So this will be a little bit variation with the best 2 out of 3 because this is super late in the competition. But these marbles really got to prove themselves if they want to make it to the Final 4. Now let's get right into the bracket. We have our 8 marbles remaining. Let's see who is going to make it to the Final 4. This has been a dream for all of these marbles. Can that dream come true? First up, we have Borealis versus Minchip. Borealis had the 2nd fastest time on the Marvelous track. Minchip had the 4th fastest time. Both of them very good in that endurance tracks. But speed is key for Borealis with the 3rd fastest time. Minchip only 8th fastest time. But when it comes to that unpredictable Hubelino, that's when Minchip shines. But in the entire races on this channel, Minchip has an 8-2 record with Borealis only having a 4-2 record. But these are just statistics. Who is going to really come out when it's clutch? Minchip on the left, Borealis on the right. They've never faced a Gravitrax track. And we're off. Our first match of the Elite Eight. Borealis has a slight lead, but he hits that obstacle. So Minchip is going to move on. Let's look at this in instant replay. You can see right here, Borealis came out to a crazy lead. But he got caught up on that obstacle, which has ended so many marbles' dreams at making it to the Final 4. So Minchip takes advantage and is moving on. Now we're moving on to round 2. Borealis needs to win this to force a tiebreaker. But if Minchip wins, Minchip is going to make it to the Final 4. Here we go. It's neck and neck. Borealis again out to the lead, but he hits the obstacle again. And Minchip wins that race. So Minchip is going to make it to the Final 4. Those are some crazy fast times. 7:04. But Borealis makes the same mistake twice, which gives Minchip the opening, and Minchip is going to be the very first marble from the Elite Eight moving on to the Final 4. You can see that once again, how Minchip just used Borealis as a bumper to keep up his momentum. What a genius strategy. And with those brains from Minchip, that's enough to make him to move on to the Final 4. Wow, Justin, wasn't that a great start to the Elite Eight matches? Now let's move on to Marshmallow versus Jawbreaker. Marshmallow 5:16 against Jawbreaker's 5:13. Both in the top 5 of the fastest times. But Marshmallow, a great marble in the Hublino Endurance with 7:16. Jawbreaker, not so much. But when it comes to the Gravitrax Slalom, Marshmallow did terrible getting caught up on that obstacle, while Jawbreaker made short work and has the 7th fastest time. But both of these marbles debuted on the Marble Tour Season 2 qualifications, and they have the top 2 fastest times. This can go to anyone. Who is going to make it? Who's going to get that first point and put pressure on that other marble? It looks though Jawbreaker's got this lead, but Marshmallow's coming back, and it's neck and neck through the catcher. Jawbreaker has a slight lead, but Jawbreaker hesitates, and Marshmallow takes the win. Let's look at this again on instant replay. You can see both of them struggling in that loop-de-loop, but Marshmallow clawed his way back from being behind, and this became neck and neck through the final 2 pieces of this track. But right here is when Jawbreaker hesitates, and Marshmallow shot straight into the red path, and that gave Marshmallow the win. Moving on to round 2, both these marbles have won 1 time. If Marshmallow wins this, Marshmallow is moving on to face off Mint Chip in the final 4. So Jawbreaker needs this win, and he takes the lead. Being clutch right now. Is this going to be forced to a tiebreaker? But Jawbreaker hesitates again. Marshmallow, is coming from behind, and Jawbreaker gets stuck. And Marshmallow gets a 2-0 victory and is going to move on. Watch this again. Jawbreaker got out to a huge lead. But look at this. He hesitates in the catcher. Marshmallow makes up a few seconds there. But on the red track, he hits that little post right in the middle, and Marshmallow takes advantage again of Jawbreaker hesitating. So Marshmallow is going to move on to the final 4. Wow, Justin, we saw some crazy upsets right there. No one thought Marshmallow was going to make it this far. Yeah, Justin, and Mint Chip, even though he's one of the best on 1v1 races, this is a really hard format to do well at, and there's a lot of pressure riding on his shoulders, and I'm really surprised that he can just put that all behind him and focus on the racing. You're absolutely right, Justin. Now let's figure out who is going to join them in the final 4. We have Rubber Ducky versus Wintergreen. In the Hublino Endurance track, Wintergreen had a 7.13 time, the 2nd fastest we've seen all season. Rubber Ducky not that far behind in the 5th fastest time. But Rubber Ducky, the fastest in the Gravitrax Slalom at 6.33. Wintergreen about a second behind, which puts him in the 15th fastest time. Moving on to the Marvelous track now. He had a 13.25, which is the 9th fastest time, and Wintergreen only had the 14th. But the Marble Tour Season 2 qualifications, both of them didn't do it well. But now they're moving on to the Rack and Roll track. This is all about sprinting. And Rubber Ducky takes the lead. No! I don't know who won that. That might be our closest race yet, but look at Rubber Ducky's lead. They say it's a tie, but we have to go to that finish cam. But Wintergreen just came out of nowhere at the end and just came sprinting. Let's look at this again on the finish cam. I don't even know. We have to go to the freeze frame, and Rubber Ducky, with a 20th of a marble length, won that race. So now if Rubber Ducky wins, he's moving on to the final 4. Wintergreen needs this race. Rubber Ducky has a huge lead, but he goes over the track. He gets a DNF, and Wintergreen wins. No one saw this coming. Rubber Ducky, crippled under the pressure, goes over that ramp, and Wintergreen wins. So with that, we now go to our coin flip, which will decide which marble gets what lane. Since Wintergreen won the last race, he is going to choose which side the coin is going to choose, which side he wants the coin to land on. He is voting heads. Let's see. Here comes the flipping of the coin. Merry Christmas is going to do the flipping of the coin. Where's the coin land? It's tails. So Rubber Ducky gets to choose which lane he wants. And I think we know which lane he wants. He wants the left lane. The lane that he won last time. So this is it. All these races have come down to this moment. Who is going to make it to the final 4? Rubber Ducky has the lead. Wintergreen trying to claw back, but Rubber Ducky holds it. So Rubber Ducky is going to move on to the final 4. He had the lead. Wintergreen tried to get a lot of momentum, but in that switchback, momentum is the last thing you want. So Rubber Ducky is going to move on to the final 4 and carry his dream alive trying to win 2 Marble Madness tournaments. But here we go. This is the final race in the Elite 8. We have Coral Reef versus Shimmer. Both of them not great times. Shimmer was in the bottom half of times twice. Coral Reef again also twice. But Coral Reef really shined in the Gravitrack Slalom. Both these marbles haven't faced a Hublino track yet, so that could be the separator. Because we really don't know who is good at Hublino because it's so unpredictable. Coral Reef has a 9-2 record on this channel and we've won races. Shimmer has 3-3. All those wins have come from this tournament. It's neck and neck from the start. Shimmer has the lead, but Coral Reef takes it through the slow section and goes right in the middle. No one saw that coming. Let's look at this again. You can see how Shimmer had the slightest lead, but in the switchback, he got it even bigger. But look at Coral Reef through that slow section and goes straight through the middle. And it's a 7.35 time, one of the fastest yet. Moving on to round 2. If Coral Reef wins, he's moving on to the Final Four. So Shimmer really needs to win right here. Can Shimmer upset Coral Reef? Coral Reef has a giant lead and is going through the slow section quickly and goes through the middle. And that guarantees him a spot. So Coral Reef wins 2-0. And Coral Reef is going to move on to the Final Four. Watch this again. Super fast through the slow section. Give credit to Shimmer because he did so well in this tournament. Just Coral Reef is such a good opponent. So Coral Reef is going to move on to the Final Four and face off against Rubber Ducky. Wow, Justin, in these 4 parts of the Marble Mayhem series, we've seen some crazy races, and we've whittled down 64 hopeful contestants to the Final Four. Make sure to stay tuned for the Final Four and the Tournament 2 coming sometime next week. And also, make sure to go over to Julian's Marble Battle Zone right now to watch his fan marble tournaments. Anyways, thanks for watching. Make sure to click that subscribe button and like this video. And stay tuned for the final part of Marble Mayhem.